It all begins very late at night, with Catherine on the phone, desperately begging the emergency dispatcher to send help. She is terrified because her ex-husband is watching her from a parked car right in front of her house, and this is the third night in a row he has done it. But things don't go as she expects. The dispatcher tells her that since she can't clearly see his face to confirm his identity, and because the restraining order is no longer valid, the police won't dispatch a patrol car. Feeling alone, unprotected, and terrified that something bad will happen, Catherine decides to take serious and immediate action. She goes to wake up her teenage son, Cameron, and tells him to pack only the most important things in a suitcase. In just a few minutes, the mother and son escape in their car. They leave the city and the man following them behind, driving into the dark night without knowing exactly where they are going. After spending a miserable night sleeping in the car, Catherine looks online for options. There she finds a place that seems safe in a very quiet little town called Wolf Hollow. When they arrive in town, they go to a local diner to have breakfast and meet with the real estate agent. There they meet Ken Armstrong, a very friendly man. To make them feel welcome, he decides to pay the breakfast tab out of his own pocket. And although Catherine tries to pay out of politeness, he won't let her. She tells him they are looking for a simple life to get away from the stress and noise of the city. Ken confidently tells them that Wolf Hollow is the ideal place for that, and that the people who live there are very sensible and down to earth. Ken takes them to see the house. It is a very old farmhouse built in 1869. As they walk around, the salesman tries to convince them that the living and dining rooms have a special antique beauty, even though it's obvious the building needs a good cleaning and several repairs. Cameron, who is very observant, sees things that give him a bad feeling. The door down to the basement is locked, and the entrance to the attic upstairs is boarded up with planks. Ken gives a quick excuse. He says the owner, a neighbor named Art, has those parts closed off for safety and to keep out animals like raccoons. While the adults are discussing documents upstairs, Cameron decides to take a look on his own. He manages to force the basement lock open and starts descending into the darkness. But he trips and falls, making a lot of noise. The noise scares Catherine and Ken, who run down worried. Although Cameron tells them he's fine, the situation becomes a bit uncomfortable and tense. Ken, who is a good salesman, promises that Art will clean up that mess. Plus, he offers them great incentives to accept. He won't charge extra for potential damages and will give Catherine a job in his office answering phones and greeting people. Since they urgently need money and a permanent place to stay, Catherine accepts the offer, feeling much calmer. Shortly after, while moving their things into the house, Cameron meets Art, the owner, who lives in the house next door. He is an older man with a serious face who speaks mysteriously. He asks Cameron if he knew that a boy used to live in that same house a long time ago. When the boy tries to ask more about who the child was or what happened to him, Art drops the subject. He tells Cameron he asked too many questions and abruptly ends the conversation, simply telling him to thank his mother for him. When school starts, things don't improve. Cameron comes home making snide and bitter comments. He doesn't want to make friends because he thinks they'll just have to move again soon. Catherine tries to cheer him up by telling him about her new job with Ken, but Cameron doesn't like that his mom gets along so well with the real estate agent. At school, the atmosphere is toxic. Cody, a bully, corners Cameron in the bathroom. There, he tells him the horror story about his new house. He says the farm belonged to Frank McTavish, a man who was allegedly violently killed by his own dogs in the garden, and that his ghost still haunts the place. Cameron is curious and also needs a topic for school, so he asks his mom a lot of questions about the house's history. Avoiding clear answers, she tells him to go talk to Art. That very night, intense supernatural events begin to occur. Cameron hears whispering voices and sees the shape of a boy in his room. Terrified, he shouts that it isn't real, but the ghost calmly replies that he is real and that he is his friend. School problems spiral out of control when Cameron confronts Cody for constantly mocking him. The argument turns into a fistfight where Cameron hits the bully, and in the end, both are suspended from school. At home, Catherine's scolding is very painful. She tells him that Cameron's violence resembles his father's. Deeply hurt by those words, the boy assures her that he is not like his father and that he was only defending himself. That night, the strange occurrences escalate. The ghost boy, who says his name is Jackie, gives Cameron a vision of what happened long ago. Cameron sees how Frank McTavish cruelly mistreated his wife, Evelyn, accusing her of being with another man. Suddenly, it seems like the bad energy Frank left behind enters Cameron. He starts punching the walls and screaming the same obscenities the dead man used to shout. Catherine bursts into the room and finds her son acting like a madman. She hugs him tightly, telling him over and over that everything is okay, until Cameron returns to himself, feeling confused and scared by his behavior. The next morning, Catherine tries to fix things. She apologizes for the nasty things she said and assures Cameron that he is a very smart boy, that he isn't crazy, and that he isn't a copy of his dad. But she also tells him they need to seek help from a doctor or therapist because he's having a lot of nightmares and has started talking to himself. That tender moment ends when she confesses that she has already discussed all these problems with Ken. Cameron becomes furious, feeling she didn't respect his privacy by telling his business to a stranger. He screams at her about how unfair his life is, being dragged from place to place across the country, forced to leave everything behind, and always living in fear that his dad will find them. Trying to understand what's happening, Cameron follows Jackie's ghost into the woods until he reaches a clearing. His investigation stops when Art appears, pointing a rifle at him. The old man uses the excuse that he thought Cameron was a deer and warns him that it's dangerous to be there because it's hunting season. Cameron confronts him, saying he knows that place was special to Jackie. Upon hearing that name, Art becomes very nervous and annoyed. He gets defensive and rudely orders him to stop investigating the past and to get out of there. Determined to discover the whole truth, Cameron talks to his mom over lunch. He tells her what the townspeople say, that Frank McTavish didn't just die but killed his wife, his son, and the man she was with, and that the dead bodies might be hidden in the house or on the land. Catherine reacts with fear, refusing to listen to those horror stories, saying it's not good for their mental health to dwell on that. Cameron, angry because she won't believe him, calls her a hypocrite. She always promises to stay calm, but gets hysterical as soon as he tries to tell her something that actually matters. Without his mom's help, Cameron decides to act on his own and sneaks into the town's nursing home. He manages to enter Mrs. Murphy's room, Cody's great-grandmother, without permission, pretending to be a friend of her great-grandson. Once inside, he gets straight to the point and asks what happened to her brother Matthew and what his relationship was with the McTavish family. The old woman's reaction is intense. Hearing her brother's name, she becomes hysterical, screaming that Frank McTavish killed them all and insisting she knows the truth even if no one believes her. The woman's screams attract the nurse's attention, forcing Cameron to run away before he gets caught. Trouble follows immediately. At home, Catherine scolds Cameron for skipping school and lying, but the argument stops when the police officer, Officer Colton, arrives. The officer tells them that while the old woman's family isn't pressing charges, they want to know why the boy was questioning a patient with mental health issues. Desperate because no one believes him, Cameron insists in front of the officer and his mom that Mrs. Murphy is telling the truth and that, thanks to his visions, he knows there are dead bodies in the attic. Embarrassed, Catherine tries to make excuses for him, claiming he has an overactive imagination. However, since Cameron remains adamant, Ken steps in and suggests checking the attic to put the matter to rest once and for all. They call Art to unlock the sealed entrance, and they go up to investigate. Much to Cameron's dismay, the space is empty. Finding nothing, the boy feels awful and begins to believe that maybe his mom is right and he actually is losing his mind. The next morning, things are calmer. Cameron finds Ken making breakfast and takes the opportunity to apologize for his behavior. Ken is very understanding and confesses that he also has children whom he misses and rarely sees, creating a genuine moment of connection between them. Feeling understood, Cameron lets his guard down and shows Ken his drawings, explaining his theory. Jackie's ghost is asking for help to uncover the crimes his father committed, but that trust is shattered quickly. Catherine tells him that Ken has arranged an appointment for him with a psychologist and that she has already divulged all his personal issues. Cameron feels betrayed and manipulated, realizing that Ken's loyalty lies with his mother. Feeling cornered and alone, Cameron makes the mistake of calling his dad Mike. During the call, Mike uses a smooth, calculated tone. He completely denies having stalked them, claiming those ideas stem from Catherine's mental issues. With malicious skill, he plants seeds of doubt in his son's mind, telling him how much he misses him and making him feel that his mother is solely to blame for keeping them apart. That night, the supernatural activity reaches its peak. Through Jackie, Cameron is transported into a vision of the past. He witnesses the night Jackie's mom supposedly left. He sees Frank McTavish, consumed by jealousy, accuse his wife Evelyn of cheating and violently attack her, while little Jackie hides in the attic, terrified. The vision confirms the terrible reality. Evelyn didn't abandon them. She was murdered by her husband, who disposed of the body and lied to his son. Back in the present, Cameron sees a dark figure in the barn. Scared but determined, he alerts the adults. Ken, showing bravery, offers to accompany him. They enter with flashlights, searching every dark corner. Although the intruder has vanished, the fact that Ken believed and supported him helps repair their relationship, giving Cameron the sense that he isn't alone in his struggle. The next day, Cameron confronts Cody at school, convinced that he was the intruder in the barn trying to scare him. He demands that Cody stay away from his house, but Cody's reaction leaves him confused. The boy genuinely denies the accusation with a sneer and calls him crazy again. This plants a terrifying doubt in Cameron. If it wasn't Cody, then there is someone real and dangerous watching them. Worried, Cameron calls his dad one last time to tell him about the incident and mentions that Ken helped him. Mike seems strangely obsessed with knowing who Ken is and what role he plays in their lives. Cameron, guilty about going behind his mother's back, makes a mature decision. He tells Mike that he prefers to stop calling him for a while until he is older. Mike's response is a veiled and chilling threat. "We all have to do what we have to do," he says before hanging up. After school, Cameron waits for Ken to pick him up. When the agent's car approaches, the boy freezes. It isn't Ken driving, but his dad, Mike, looking at him with a mixture of satisfaction and madness. Cameron tries to call for help, but Mike shows him Catherine's cell phone, proving he is in total control. He orders him to get in the car if he wants to see his mom alive again. With no other choice, Cameron obeys. Inside the vehicle, Mike drives calmly while revealing the brutal truth. He confesses that he pushed Catherine down the stairs and locked her, injured, in the basement. He also coldly reveals that Ken is bound and gagged in the trunk. Cameron realizes that the shadow in the barn was his dad, waiting for the right moment to strike. Mike justifies his actions with twisted logic. He blames Catherine for everything and has decided that the only way to reclaim his family is to eliminate her and Ken so he can have Cameron all to himself. The ride becomes a nightmare. Cameron realizes that his dad is just as dangerous as Frank McTavish was. Seizing a chaotic moment, Cameron manages to escape the car and runs into the woods. Mike chases him, screaming his name and plunging into the thick vegetation to hunt him down. The chase ends in the forest clearing, Jackie's old refuge. Just as Mike is about to catch his son, ghostly barking fills the air. The farm's phantom dogs appear, but instead of attacking Cameron, they lunge at Mike with the same ferocity with which they killed Frank years ago, bringing the cycle of violence to a close. Shortly after, Art finds Cameron shaken but safe. Police and emergency services arrive, rescuing Catherine from the basement and Ken from the trunk, injured but alive. They find Mike's body in the woods. The officer in charge remarks in disbelief that he appears to have been devoured by wild animals, something inexplicable for that area. With the threat eliminated, Art decides to reveal the whole truth to heal the wounds of the past. He confesses to the police and the family that Mike's body is not the only one in those woods. He painfully recounts how, after Frank's death, little Jackie hid in an old trunk in the attic. A storm hit the house, and no one knew the boy was trapped inside. Years later, Art found the child's body when he went up to repair the roof. Instead of notifying the authorities, he buried him in the forest clearing, the only place where his friend had been happy to get him away from the cursed house. Art also confirms that Frank murdered his wife, Evelyn, and her lover, Matthew. Thanks to the information Jackie's ghost gave Cameron, authorities locate the remains of both, which had been hidden in the barn all this time. With the bodies recovered and the truth exposed, the suffering spirits finally find rest. The story ends with a sense of peace. Cameron, free from his father and knowing that what he experienced was real, visits the forest clearing one last time. Standing before his ghost friend's grave, he thanks Jackie for protecting him and showing him the truth. With the mystery resolved and the family reunited, Cameron walks away with his mom and Ken, ready to build a new life far from the shadows of Wolf Hollow.